Attention podcast listener, we've got an exciting new podcast coming just for patrons of patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 1 has begun exclusively for our $5 and up patrons on the Talking Simpsons Network. That's the first 10 episodes of Futurama coming to you once a week.
So just sign up for $5 a month at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons and you'll get Talking Futurama Season 2 and all of our limited miniseries, including the entirety of Talking Futurama Season 1. That's 13 episodes.
That is patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Now please enjoy the rest of this podcast.
Cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where Batman teaches us about Marxism. I'm your host, Cat Lady Seducer Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Henry Gilbert, and I'll never regret wearing my kryptonite ring.
And today's episode is the Justice League episode, Injustice for All, Part 2.
What are you looking for? Bat car keys? Bat breath mints?
And yes, this is a return to the DCAU and chosen by one of our premium patrons. And this is chosen by Jibbly, who that's a $50 a month person who they open up so rarely. But if one opens up, you guys should definitely think about it, because after 4 months, you get to pick an episode of What a Cartoon for us to do. And this was quite a fun pick by him, directed even at me for it. So here's why Jibbly picked this one. After I listened to your Superman episode, I think we have to hear your take on Justice League. I'd also love to hear Henry's favorite episode of the original Justice League series. I'm sure you have enough to say about the importance of the Justice League, but suffice it to say, I think it is the quintessential DC universe, and it pretty much informed my entire idea of superhero comics. I think this is Bruce Timm at his creative best, and the writing is somehow able to bridge some of the craziest DC ideas like the Earth 2 Justice Society of America and Gorilla Grodd, and make it into one of the most consistent and grounded comic universes there is. Just like for Batman, the takes on Green Lantern, Hawkwoman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Lex Luthor, and all the rest are the defining takes on these heroes. Thank you for the vote of confidence, Jibbly, in my pick. Now, I picked this one because it is one of my favorites. Now, I don't think it is my all-time favorite Justice League episode of the original 2 seasons of Justice League. That would probably be the finale, Star-Crossed, just because it pays off everything. And the secret identities scene is one of my favorite scenes they ever did in the DCAU. But this Injustice Gang episode is a real favorite of mine. And it is a great showcase of the Justice League because you get action and all the major characters in it and a supervillain team up. And it's a ton of fun. And I was a big time fan of Justice League. Watched it every week when it showed up. It was, this DC animated universe continuation, and the programs had aged up with me in content. And also, as I became a bigger and bigger comic book nerd who knew all the background of the comics they were referencing, they could make these deeper references that they couldn't get away with on Batman and Superman that impressed me even more. That made me go oh man, they're referencing that. I loved this show.
I was not a really big watcher of this because I'm sure because of all the internet jokes and whatever, I was told that the Superfriends were corny.
Yes, yeah.
And I was like, I'm not watching this corny show, although I know who made it and everything. And I think I would end up watching a few episodes because this was the era in which I was going to a lot of anime conventions. So you get up at an anime convention, you turn on the TV, you see what's going on. My friends and I would watch a few of these. And I know I saw part 1 of this because the Flash makes a joke about how he comes too fast.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, they just made a joke about that? And I was like 20 and it blew my mind.
And I had those flames out before the firemen even stepped off their trucks.
That's fast.
Fastest man alive.
Which might explain why you can't get a date.
Yeah. Hey, what's that supposed to mean?
Quiet.
Yeah, I was there for that joke in person. But yeah, I just never watched this. And it was surprising because this is, in terms of what they're allowed to do, more mature than Batman the Animated Series because you can just get punched in the face in this show.
Yeah.
Finally. And glass can break.
It's the, I was counting every direct punch landing and glass breaking on this show. It was really special. Yeah, I think the only thing that hurts Justice League for me in retrospect is that the continuation of it, Justice League Unlimited, is even better. And in all the ways I love Justice League Unlimited is even more creative and crazy and with better animation and even more great scripts and wild characters they pull in there, that it makes regular Justice League feel kind of limited by comparison.
Justice League Limited. No, I think I was put off from this because I'm not a big like Western comics fan, and just seeing all these characters like immediately on the screen with no context, I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I feel like Batman was easier for me to get into because each episode was sort of like a mini movie where they did a really good job of establishing who this villain is.
Yeah.
And by the I would learn who they all were, and by the time they were like mixing them up, I was like, okay, I know who all these people are. But with this, like, you just turn it on, you see all these suited people. I still don't know who most of them are watching it now.
Yeah, well, that's it turned around where on Batman, for instance, they would go to the trouble of establishing, say, Ra's al Ghul, and then they'd want you to go like, whoa. But meanwhile, if you were a super fan, the second they tease him, you are going, oh my God, they're going to bring in Ra's al Ghul, but they make you earn it. In this show, they don't really have the time for that. So there's like, look, this is Solomon fucking Grundy. You either know who he is or you don't.
He was the only one on that team aside from Lex Luthor that I did know because of the Super Friends. Yeah.
Or Super Friends comedy, perhaps, not even watching regular Super Friends.
Oh, yeah.
Solomon Grundy want pants too.
Is he a zombie? What's going on with him?
Yes, he's a super zombie.
Okay.
So he's more of the magic voodoo type zombie than the typical zombie.
Yeah.
So he's also plant based. So he's a classic Green Lantern Golden Age villain, and he is, by being plant based, old Green Lantern, the Golden Age Green Lantern, his stuff doesn't work on plants at all. And so he'd have to use his ring in creative ways to defeat this plant-based zombie.
And he spent the early 80s stealing Hostess fruit pies?
Yeah, I mean, he did that. All of them got the fruit pie racket. Yeah. Grundy is really great. And he's also the lead in one of the best Justice League Unlimited episodes, too. Like, there's a great one with him and Hawkgirl in it that I just love, but we'll get more into that later. But listeners, in case you don't know what a giant comic book nerd I am, I love comic books. I've read too many of them. And while I'll always be a Marvel zombie at heart who prefers the Marvel Universe to DC, the most iconic super team is the Justice League, and this is the most iconic version of them to me and millions of other people. And like, this was finally an animated series that was worthy of the Justice League as well. And the only problem I had with watching the show then was just that it had a very iffy airing schedule. Like, Cartoon Network would sometimes go months without airing a new episode and then like dump 3 in a month. And it was really weird because it was one of the most high-rated things Cartoon Network had in 2001, 2002, and yet they aired it very lightly. It was very confusing. And it was one of the first shows on Cartoon Network that I went online to find answers for. In my research for this, I found some old quotes from Bruce Timm, and I was like, oh, I remember reading these when he said these as new because I was looking for any information on when we'd finally see the new episodes of season 2.
He posting on Toon Zone?
I'm going to be sourcing Toon Zone a number of times here.
Thank you, Toon Zone.
I really appreciate Toon Zone for maintaining these secrets here. All right. As we did with Batman and we did with Superman, we're going to be doing Justice League 2, though this does go out of order because Batman Beyond was the next thing they did in between Superman and Justice League. But I'll explain why that in a sec. But all right, the history of the Justice League itself. DC Comics always had the biggest names in superheroes in the golden age, which is defined by like the, say, late 30s to late 50s. Okay. That's the golden age of comic books. And easily the most popular were Superman, Batman, and to a lesser extent Wonder Woman, but they were the big three. All owned by National Comics, but I'm just going to call them DC Comics because that's the legacy of the company. And basically nobody was bigger than them. And they did have a bunch of other somewhat popular superheroes who they were always trying to raise the profile of. So DC Comics created some of the first superhero teams that brought all of these characters who appeared in disparate other books into the same book. Comics like the Justice Society of America and the All-Star Squadron. And the funniest trick with those...
They're my favorite squadron.
The funniest trick with these is that on the cover, you'd see Superman and Batman. And then when you'd read it, Superman and Batman would be in like one panel each. And then you get an adventure with like The Flash and Hourman and Dr. Fate.
They'd be at like a meeting.
Yes, yeah. They'd be like, well, I got to go. The secret behind the scenes was the editors' fiefdoms at DC were so strict that the guys in charge of the plum assignments like Superman and Batman, they hated sharing with any other editors. So they're like, you get Superman once a year, Justice Society. And that would continue on into the next team book. So late 1950s, DC has brought back new iterations of classic Golden Age heroes, Flash, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter. There was a character called Manhunter, and they're like, what if he was from Mars? That's sci-fi. They also had repackaged and rebranded other Golden Age heroes like Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Hawkgirl, Green Arrow, and many others. And the Silver Age was beginning with these characters getting new notoriety and popularity with a new generation of readers. Now, Gardner Fox is a comic writer who is one of the most underrated folks in superhero comic history. He's co-creator of Golden Age Flash, Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Zatanna, the original Sandman. He was one of the first writers for Batman who created the utility belt and the Batarang. Those were him. Okay. And as a writer, he also oversaw the creation of the Justice Society of America. And so, as DC Comics are getting more popular again, Julie Schwartz, who was basically the Stan Lee of DC, he asked Gardner, make a new team book, but let's not bring back the Justice Society. You know, Major League Baseball is all the rage these days, so let's make it a Justice League of America.
The National Hero League.
Gardner Fox, along with artist Mike Sikowski, in December 1989, in Brave and the Bold number 28, they do a test comic of the Justice League, which is like a Justice League adventure.
So the phrase Justice League was not used until 1989?
Yeah,
okay.
No, 59.
59, sorry.
Yeah. Not used until 1959, yeah. And because the Society existed, this was now replacing Society with a league. They imagined the team as having Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman in it, and also Aquaman, the Green Lantern, Flash, and Martian Manhunter. For the folks below the Wonder Woman level of fame, this was to uplift them and make their solo adventures sell more because they're teaming up with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. It was an instant sales success. Like, for kids at the time, they're like, I'm buying one comic and I get all the best superheroes in it? Yay! Like, they were so successful. Within 3 test issues, Justice League of America gets its own comic. It's one of the best-selling comics DC has throughout the entire 60s. Gardner and Sikowski do 8 years on it before being replaced. And like, as Stan Lee has told the story, there wouldn't be a Fantastic Four if he hadn't been told by his publisher, hey, Justice League's doing well, we should have a superhero team book. Like, that's how big the Justice League was. The JLA even had their own sidekick in Snapper Carr, who was a hip young teen of the 60s who liked to snap his fingers.
That's what they did. The snapping fad.
In the animated series, Snapper appears as a news reporter, so they put him in there. But yeah, he's like, yeah, the snapping of fingers. I'm just a cool guy snapping him, daddy.
Having been invented the previous year.
He's not, they can't make him like a full-on beatnik, but he's like, well, beatnik snap fingers, so Snapper will do that too. So the Justice League of America comics would form the core of DC adventures and continuity. They would introduce the idea of like mega crossovers and crises. And at the start, Superman and Batman were barely allowed to be in it. But by the 70s, those things loosened, and it did cause the Justice League, though, to go through like a number of different iterations. Like, part of the fun of Justice League was every couple years a new writer or somebody would come on board and be like, well, I'm going to have this team or I'm going to have this team. And the Justice League success then led into the 1970s where they'd get their own cartoon. Now, the DC heroes had already had a bunch of cartoons, but beyond Superman and Batman and some Filmation junk of Green Lantern and Aquaman, basically no other cartoons. Hanna-Barbera gets the DC rights. And you know what? A Justice League, that doesn't sound very kid-friendly to me. They got to be Super Friends.
We are the Super Friends.
Shut up. And also in typical Hanna-Barbera style for 1973, they need teen sidekicks like Wendy and Marvin and the Wonder Twins and Gleek, an
The Wonder
animal sidekick
Twins
too.
are destroyed in effigy in this episode.
They are. But the Wendy and Marvin are even stupider than the Wonder Twins. At least the Wonder Twins have powers. Wendy and Marvin are just off-the-rack Hanna-Barbera teens.
Did they have a dog?
Yeah, Wonder Mutt.
Okay, Wonder Mutt, yeah.
Yeah, and but so the Super Friends, it has like 2 seasons and then gets canceled, then comes back for 2 more, canceled again.
Jeez.
And then when the He-Man boom begins, they get one more extra toyetic run in 84, 85. Ultimately, there will be 100 episodes of Super Friends across a decade.
I don't think I've seen an episode of Super Friends. I just don't know how I missed it. I'm sure it was rerun when I was a kid, but I'm most familiar with it through the Sean Baby website of the late 90s, early 2000s, just making fun of it. That's all my context for these characters.
Yeah.
Except for Batman.
It defined so many of these characters, and it's been something that, like, DC actually hates. Like, DC does not want, or in 2000, they did not want Super Friends to define their very serious, cool characters.
And Sean Baby definitely popularized the Aquaman sucks joke. I mean, it was always floating around there, but he marketed it. He made that his brand.
Yeah.
He sold T-shirts that said Aquaman sucks on it.
Yeah, he was really... one of my favorite jokes he did in there was how he pointed out, like, Superman hates force fields, and he just cut together, like, a 40-second or 2-minute long scene after scene of Superman going, like, it's a force field. Bam, 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 bam. I can't get through it. Like, because, as Sean Baby also pointed out, you don't need a Justice League when you have Superman. He can literally do everything every member of the Justice League can do. And so why do you need anyone else?
Oh, man, I am at his Super Friends website, still online, and all the images are perfect for that era of resolution. So you can see all of the custom, like... Animanga he made, which is like screenshots of Super Friends with new dialogue bubbles.
Yeah.
Like, remember when there were websites? That was so much fun. I loved websites.
Man, I'm gonna read. Man, me and my friends just reading them together, just laughing for hours, just reading out loud his jokes. Sean Baby made internet comedy,
And everyone ripped him off, including me.
Yeah. Oh, me too. So the Super Friends, it kind of goes through its stuff and is replayed endlessly. Over and over and over. But that's the only Justice League cartoon. Otherwise, most times when DC licenses a superhero, they license one superhero for that stuff. So the DC animated universe gets up and running in 1992. We talked about Bruce Timm and his team starting up Batman the Animated Series, and they would tease just a little bit every now and then that there could be other heroes. But basically, Batman's the only hero in that world. Then we get to the 1996 to 2000 Superman series and also the Batman companion shows. That opens it up more. And as we talked about, the final season of Superman had multiple team-ups, and it was kind of meant as a stealth pilot of like, if you renew this again, WB, we'll just have him team up with superheroes each week. This won't be the Superman show. It'll be the Superman team-up show. And that was them really showing off, like, what if we did Green Lantern? What if we did The Flash? What if we did Aquaman? Like, it was them toying around with the idea of an expanded DC animated universe. And also around the same time, though, lots of ideas were happening for a Justice League show, including a truly terrible live-action Justice League pilot that Warner made.
Oh, that came up as like from 97, right?
Yes, yeah, that would have aired on CBS.
It's like that Corman Fantastic Four movie.
I can't tell which looks cheaper, but it was a favorite to buy on dubbed VHSs at Comic Cons for sure, or then burned onto DVDs. And it was just junk, but there was renewed interest in the Justice League of America because Grant Morrison and Howard Porter, they took over the book in the mid-90s, and it was a truly great run of JLA. I love that run, the Morrison Porter run, because the Justice League for such a long time got away from having all the major characters, but Grant Morrison was like, no, this needs to be the big seven: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, and Aquaman, which he gets cut when it's time to define the big seven of the future animated series.
Who's he replaced by?
Hawkgirl.
I don't really know who that is.
Oh, Shiera is one of the best characters in the whole series.
Where does she
She's
come
great.
from, though?
Oh boy, it's
Is it like her own book?
Yes,
or, okay.
yeah. The Hawk. She was the romantic partner and I guess like sidekick-ish of Hawkman in the classic
I assume
Hawkman
that
comics.
she was associated with Hawkman, yeah.
Yes, yeah. She was Hawkman's girlfriend in the 40s comics, then wife, and then
Then a messy divorce.
well, and then in the 60s, they kind of rebooted and they were like on again, off again. And Hawkgirl would be in her own adventures and be a key member of the Justice League. And so for them, they wanted to have another woman on the team. They're like, it can't just be Wonder Woman. We need one other woman on this team.
And the Aquaman joke stink was still happening.
Pretty much.
Yeah, the fumes were coming off of it.
Though they would get Aquaman in Justice League in like in the first season. But yeah, so there's all this excitement. Everybody wants a Justice League show except for Kids WB. Because as natural as it would seem to pitch a Justice League show, Pokemon happened. And at Kids WB, they wanted a younger skewing kids block, which meant Superman, which skewed older in demographics, was not what they wanted. And a show with 7 super people in it was really not what they wanted.
I pulled up the Kids WB lineup from the year after Superman ended. So the lineup was, for the most part, well, if you skip ahead, there's like an entry for every week. And some weeks it's like Pokemon airs like 6 times.
Yeah, why bother with those Freakazoid reruns? Just more Pokemon.
But like Men in Black the series, Batman Beyond, Pokemon, Card Captors. I forgot Card Captor Sakura was like a dub thing. Pokemon Generation O and Max Steel.
Max Steel, wow. Yeah, so not much room for superheroes in that block.
Static
there.
Shock was around this time too, but that was also youth focused.
Well, yes, so that's what happens. They're pitching their Superman team-up show that will transition into being a Justice League show, but Warner wants teen superheroes. So not only do they sell, Static Shock actually comes slightly later. They first sell Batman Beyond. Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, and them go to Warner and say, like, fine, teen Batman. How about that? And the old Batman trains this teen Batman, which sounds incredibly stupid and yet turns into like a very great show that also is way darker than Superman and like actually skews older. But
I skipped it because the premise seems stupid, and now I know I missed a really good show.
yeah, it's a great show. And but I mean, you saw the direct-to-video movie, which is the best of the show.
That's fantastic.
So they work on that. They do 3 seasons, 52 episodes. It airs from 1999 into 2001. Though really it's done in 2000. And the show is a hit, and it's time to start pitching another show. And I want to credit Comic Book Resources. That website did a great rundown of all these old Toon Zone posts and quotes from people to explain why it was hard for them to sell a Justice League show. So Paul Dini said in 2000, everybody wants to see it, and we would like to do it, but the suits at the network keep pounding in that this is kids WB. If we were able to do Justice League, all they see is a bunch of adults in suits. And so
idiotic.
yeah,
stupid.
I know. Kids like superheroes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but
I never needed a kid in something as a kid to like get into it. And then when they put the kid in, I'm like, this sucks.
yeah, oh, fucking kid now. Like, that's why the Robin of the Kids WB era Batman was the little kid Tim Drake, who was good, and I liked him. But yeah, it sucked. It always sucked. I hated it. But I guess, you know, it's for the imagined kid that, say, Jamie Kellner, the executive of WB at the time, saw, they wanted them to see young people.
When you're a kid, you hate being a kid. You don't want to see other kids unless it's a show like about kids.
Yeah, but if I'm watching adults have adventures, I want to see Spider-Man have adventures that I don't need a child to be my window into that world. So Bruce Timm, they were trying to pitch something to sell to Kids WB because he's got this great team, and if they don't get a new series sold, they're just thrown to the four winds, and this group of great artists he's worked so hard to build up over time, they're gone. So he's got to sell a new show. So he's pitching new things to Warner as well. He pitches a Bat anime show with some character designs by the artist Adam Warren, who I would have loved to see the designs for that.
Sounds good.
There.
They would eventually make Batman anime.
And he'd also pitch a Pokemon-style show, which, as he described it, as a follow-up to Batman Beyond, quote, Terry moves to a colony on a terraformed Mars and has kid-friendly adventures there. I was really relieved when Kids WB showed no interest in it, as I just hated the concept. Kenner loved the whole pitch, wanted to get started on a toy line yesterday, but Kids WB thought it was still too traditional.
Aww.
It wasn't out of the box enough.
Oh, where have I heard that before?
Batman's still too reactive. Does he have to fight crime? I pointed out that he would be fighting monsters, not criminals. What if instead of 3 kids who fight monsters, what if the 3 kids compete about who gets to be Batman? After a long moment of stunned silence, I pointed out that if Batman's not protecting the weak from the bad guys, be they monsters or criminals or aliens or what have you, then fundamentally, it just isn't Batman at all. So,
Well said.
yeah, that poor Bruce Timm is suffering a lot with a lot of bad executives for the most obvious thing in the world of like a Justice League cartoon. Just fucking do it.
For all the success he's had over the past like decade, trust the man.
Yeah, but that's, we all know executives.
It's your job to give shitty notes, or else you can't prove your worthless job.
The second I said that out of the box thing, I was like,
too many bad memories hearing that phrase.
Though, as they were still pushing for it, the creative team, even in one of the last season of Batman Beyond, is many stealth pilots, and one of them is a 2-parter called The Call, where Terry McGinnis is invited to join the future Justice League, and so only Superman is a carryover from the Justice League that will be in their own series. But it was them seeing, like, could we do a show that has more than one lead character in it? Because, as Tim would say, oh, this is way harder than doing a solo hero show to have 7 lead characters in it. This is gonna be a test, and the Call gave them a chance to figure it out. So Tim and his team gave Kids WB one more pitch for Justice League. They created a 1-minute-long pitch reel, full color, that at the start looks pretty much like what we see in this show. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, John Jones, and Hawk Girl are all there, but they are mentoring younger heroes like Impulse, Robin, and a female version of Cyborg. So it still gets like, here's the kids. They're helping these kids. See, you get some teens. Like, you can watch it on the first season DVD, or it's on YouTube. It's interesting to see what could have been.
I guess it would only be a few years before they produced the Teen Titans, the original series, which is probably what they were looking for.
Yeah, actually, in one of the quotes too, I saw that Glenn Murakami, who would be the exec producer on the Teen Titans show, working on those anime pitches gave him the inspiration of like, we can do an American style anime.
It's about kids and it's also anime influenced.
Yeah, but even still, that went on Cartoon Network. Like Kids WB, they were like, if you're not Pokemon, we don't give a fuck. Like, and yes, that cast shakeup. They get rid of Aquaman to have Hawkgirl because, it makes it more diverse. And the same goes for Jon Stewart, the Green Lantern, who had been around for over 20 years at this point in comics, but it never appeared on screen. In Superman, they actually had already set up Kyle Rayner, who was then the lead Green Lantern in the comics. They're like, okay, Kyle Rayner's with Superman. But then they're like, man, this is just all white people. And DC is infamous for how long it took them to have any non-white superheroes. And DC is known as like the white guy brigade. So they're like, all right, then let's get the Green Lantern in here. And he was called Jon Stewart long before the host of Daily Show
always confused me.
It's
call him Craig Kilborn.
But I love Jon Stewart, and I think I remember people saying, what do kids think of this like Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern? Because they're like, Green Lantern's black. What the fuck are you doing? Like if they ever try to do Green Lantern again in a movie, it should be a Jon Stewart one, I think.
I agree.
And it elevated Hawkgirl over Hawkman as well. It made both of them very famous. And also, the show would ship them together, which it had never happened in the comic books before, too. Unfortunately, Kids WB, not interested in that pitch, turned him down one more time. Seems like the end for our pals at Warner Animation for doing a Justice League show. But anime comes in. So, as listeners have heard us talk about before with Toonami, a game changer of a animation block on Cartoon Network. Some of their highest rated stuff, action-oriented programming for Cartoon Network at an older teen boy demographic, and they are getting ready to not only buy up every anime they can to fill that schedule, but they are now looking to have their own original programming in the Toonami block as well. So Cartoon Network, I found this article from January 2001. It was announced that Cartoon Network saw the pitch and they're like, yeah, just give us Justice League. Like, we don't need these kids. We are skewing older. We want just the Justice League characters. So January 2001, they sell a 26 episode for the first season, but the catch is every episode will be part 1 or 2 of a multi-parter. There would be no standalone episodes, and twice a year there would be a 3-parter mega event one. And originally it was meant to be like, oh, there'll always be a cliffhanger and people will come back the next week. Though in season 2 they're like, let's just air it as an hour. Like, let's not split these up. And this was part of a big spend Cartoon Network was doing. $500 million they were spending on new original programming, which would include Samurai Jack, 100 new episodes of Dragon Ball Z, and coming very soon, Adult Swim.
Oh, yeah.
This would premiere 2 months after Adult Swim.
What a golden age for that network.
It was, I mean, we are so lucky that Warner Brothers was like, yeah, here's $500 million. Just make a bunch of stuff.
Here's $200. Make a show about a milkshake.
Oh, yes. I mean, I think one episode of Justice League cost the equivalent of like 8 hours of Adult Swim programming.
For sure, yeah.
So they get the green light. Bruce Timm oversaw development of the project with Gene McCurdy. It was one of McCurdy's final jobs before resigning from Warner Animation in 2001. She's still doing good, but this was the end of an era of Gene McCurdy leaving Warner Animation.
Yeah, like over a decade, right?
Yeah.
Starting with Tiny Toons?
Yeah, it was the development of that probably was 89, I think. So yeah. I would wonder what circumstances she left in. I don't know. But yes, not only Hawkgirl and Green Lantern, they went through big changes. Flash got a slight update because he was pretty close to how he appeared in the Superman series. The biggest deal was getting Wonder Woman because she'd never been in an animated Timm series before. And Bruce Timm mentioned that there was some pushback about getting Wonder Woman in the show. He said the president of DC comic book publishing was like, it has to be the 3. You can have other characters, but you have to have Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. But other departments in Warner were like, we're about to make a Wonder Woman movie. We don't want to have her on a TV show. That movie never got made. It took him 15 more years to make that movie. But he was able to push against that and got Wonder Woman in the show. And they also, in his first ever animated appearance, Martian Manhunter is in it. He's one of the weirdest characters.
What's his deal? His name is John?
Yes. So apparently they told him they were told that he couldn't be called a manhunter on Cartoon Network.
Oh, really?
So he just goes by his secret identity name of John
Manhunting
Jones.
Sounds dangerous. The kids shouldn't try it.
But he has a spacey spelling of it of J''ONN, J''ONZ.
So the joke is it's a very standard name, but it's all Martianed up.
Yes,
you spell it out.
It's a Martian-y regular name. But and then his secret identity is he would morph into a human named John Jones, and that would be his secret identity. But I love Martian Manhunter, like his design of just green with the blue boots and cape and everything is just, it's such a cool design, and he's a weirdo. Like, that's also what I love about him. He's a lot of fun, and it's sad he had never appeared even on Super Friends, not invited.
Yeah, he was one of the characters I was like, wait, who is this? He's on the same par. He's on par with like Batman. Okay.
It's crazy he wasn't invited into the show in the 70s because kids love Martians, don't they?
And manhunting.
So Bruce and his team were also very ahead of the curve wanting to format the show in widescreen, though it was actually animated in full screen with just the plan that they could cut off the top and bottom for a widescreen presentation. Timm said this about that. It was a major battle to get Cartoon Network to agree to regularly scheduled widescreen airing. We prepared the show with a widescreen ratio in mind, and we feel the show just plain looks better that way. The compositions are tighter, more focused. It also helps to give the show the more epic movie look that we're trying to achieve. Certainly the full frame version works well too. We just prefer the widescreen version. So, yeah, what would happen was in the, first airings that would happen at 7 p.m., those would be in widescreen. But for all the reruns, they would go to the full screen version because they figured this is the end of the SD television.
You're
era
still
here.
battling like, ooh, can we handle bars? I don't know. People turn it off if we see the bars.
And it turns out that he was way ahead of the curve of like, no, this is HD television. This is what it is.
This is the future.
Justice League Unlimited, I believe, will just be a fully HD widescreen show. But this was the battle he was having. Also, another thing I really liked about it was that this was kind of a prestige show. Like the other DC animated shows, they were still stuck in the kid-friendly rerun mindset. But this was about like, no, this is a season-long arc, and we will have season finales. These will be major events.
I think it's another thing that put me off of the show. It's like, where am I in this story? I mean, it was cool that they did it, but as somebody who's not familiar with the source material, it's kind of difficult.
Sure, I get that. But this was made more for the hardcores. This was not meant to be.
It's not for me.
Timm even said he preferred Cartoon Network's censors as well because they were much lighter than the WB was. Not that they had no censors or rules of like, hey, you can't do that. But say when in this episode the Joker just pulls out a knife.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that on the kids' WB.
I was also counting all the punches to the face that weren't like covered up by a white flash.
Or the Joker just pulls out like, no, it's just a handgun. It's 9mm.
Yeah.
Shoot him. And so, yes, the shows were much bigger in scale, longer too, bigger action scenes. Though also they made a rule because of how tough it is to animate all the characters that unless it was a big event episode, they would limit the number of league members who would be in episodes. Most episodes were kept it to 5 members of the league instead of the full membership. That's another reason I wanted to do the Injustice League episode because you get the full membership in these ones. They have big plans for character arcs, including something very big planned with Hawkgirl, but I won't spoil it for people who haven't listened or haven't watched the whole thing yet. So the executive producers, showrunners of the show, in addition to Bruce Timm, were Glenn Murakami and Rich Fogel, big name guys who have usually worked with them. But also moved up to the EP level this time around. 4th seat, James Tucker, a very accomplished animator in his own right. Like he headed up the Brave and the Bold Batman show that we did before too.
Okay.
And he really came into his own on Batman Beyond. So Tucker, veteran of many Warner shows, he also was a boarder on Captain Simeon and the Space Monkeys, which we did before.
Yeah. Part of the Bobot universe.
Yeah. But fortunately, Tucker got to stick around with Warner and not hang his hat on the remnants of the Deke universe. He worked on Batman. He worked on Superman. On Batman Beyond, he got a big promotion. His first time to going to directing instead of just boarding and character design. On Static Shock as well, he was a director, and he also got a story by credit. And in fact, when production started on the Return of the Joker movie, that director left Batman Beyond, and so Tucker took over his unit, and he really proved himself. Like Bruce Timm's like, damn, all right, you're one of the 4 guys then on Justice League, James. For Justice League, James Tucker also did a ton of character designs that really set the tone for how the new characters would look in this DC animated universe, as well as he would redefine the looks of Superman and Batman. Batman already had gone through a character redesign for Warner for Kids WB, but now he goes through another one for this series where he's actually, it's meant to be a reference to Batman Beyond because in Batman Beyond, he has longer ears, and also like I didn't catch it in this, but Batman has like heels on his shoes in this one too.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
He's just a sharper, pointier Batman.
And Superman looks and sounds older.
Yes, yeah, he's bigger and buffer and older. It's so they wanted this Superman to feel like he's, been around the block a few times. He's a veteran, and they gave him like these hardline cheekbones and kind of like a little extra line under his eyes to make him look old, which they said online they saw that fans were criticizing that Superman looked like way too much of an old man. So they removed those lines from his face for season 2 onwards.
Yeah.
Though he still is like, he's beefier too, like his upper body is bigger as well. Interesting though, after Beyond, Paul Dini actually was much less involved in this show. He does have story by credit on 2 episodes and wrote the series' only standalone episode, the holiday special. And this was the first DC Animated Universe show that did not have the involvement of Alan Burnett, who was the showrunner of Batman the Animated Series. He was too busy with Static Shock and the Osmosis Jones television show.
Oh, they made one of those. I think thinking the movie would be a hit. That was also WB.
Yeah. Warner's like, oh, we got the plan.
Ozzy and Drix.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing.
And they couldn't afford Chris Rock or David Hyde Pierce.
Yeah. But there's some non-union guys in LA. They can do just as well. And one other writer I do want to point out here is Dwayne McDuffie, one of my all-time favorite comic writers, the late, great Dwayne McDuffie, co-creator of the Static Shock character. And so when Static got his own TV show, Dwayne got to write for that. And the Warner guys were like, oh, you're a really great television writer too. Come on board Justice League. And so he wrote some of the best episodes of Justice League. He'd get even more writing opportunities on Justice League Unlimited. And he'd write several of the best DC animated movies, the direct-to-video ones, right up until his untimely passing in 2011. So R.I.P. Dwayne McDuffie. He's like one of the, what I loved about him, he was a funny writer, incredibly creative, huge fan of the characters and got them, but also like he was a lefty guy who also was very into African-American history and studies, like he was an African-American. And so he brought all of this experience to his works in a way that like usually editors grind out of people and try to stop you from having all that. And the voice team, incredible as always, overseen by Andrea Romano. You can't do it without Andrea Romano. Andrea. And so yes, they brought back a lot of voices from the previous shows if their characters returned, and some fantastic new voices. You got Kevin Conroy back as Batman. Who else could it be? I mean, come on. Like it goes without saying. You can't.
He should be Batman until he dies.
Though Tim Daly turned down coming back as Superman.
I read about that.
He was too busy with his reboot of The Fugitive.
And that's a very successful reboot, right?
Yeah, it went on for at least one season.
God, bring back Wings. We need Wings in this time.
Where's our Wings reboot?
Yeah.
And
people need to know why every show made fun of it in the 90s.
So instead, they recast the role of Superman with actor George Newbern. He takes over the role. He's mainly known for live action roles. And he actually has a recurring character on that show, Scandal, even. He's appeared in a lot of stuff. I got to interview him once. A really nice guy.
And has he basically done Superman's voice since then?
So on and off.
Yeah.
He's done Superman a lot. Sometimes Superman is voiced by Adam Baldwin.
Oh, no.
Not
seems like a
anymore
mistake.
these days. Yeah. Well, it wasn't a mistake like 8 years ago, but yeah. And at other times, Superman, they actually do go like, we got back Tim Daly. It will be Tim Daly this time. But so when this series debuted, I viewed Newbern as a pretender to the throne. I was like, this isn't my Superman. He's just doing a Tim Daly impersonation. But over time, I think he really grew into the role. And he just did Superman in the Injustice video games.
Okay.
That's when I got to interview him. Super cool dude. He also voiced Sephiroth in many things, including Advent Children and Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, okay, wow.
Though I don't believe he's Sephiroth in the new remakes.
I think they just got a ton of new people for those remakes.
Well, you got to get him younger because you just assume these people will be voicing them for another decade.
No more Lance Bass.
So then we got Susan Eisenberg as in her career-defining role, cast as Wonder Woman. She's really awesome at it. And also she's very invested in maintaining the role of Wonder Woman. Like she has been one of the people on Twitter who's just like, bring back the Justice League team. Have a Justice League reboot cartoon of this team and have me be Wonder Woman. And she's also very supportive of the relationship between Batman and Wonder Woman in the show. She jokes about how much she's in love with Kevin Conroy and how they're such good friends. Kevin Conroy is gay. I've said this before, so but
it's not going to work out.
But yes, but Susan Eisenberg, just so great. Then Green Lantern, voice actor extraordinaire Phil LaMarr in one of his most iconic roles. I'd probably say, I don't know, Samurai Jack might be more famous for him, or his most iconic role is getting shot in the head in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, Marvin.
Yeah, it's Marvin.
Yes,
yeah.
Or Hermes.
Yeah,
Futurama.
Hermes is up there too, but this Green Lantern, so good at it. Phil LaMarr, one of the greatest ever. Then we got Michael Rosenbaum as the Flash. Funnily enough, right after he was cast as the Flash, he is cast as Lex Luthor on Smallville.
Hey, that's good timing.
So at the same time he's playing the Flash, he's playing Lex Luthor, which they will use to comedic effect in a Justice League Unlimited episode. Then we've got Carl Lumbly playing John Jones, a great character actor with a million small credits to his name. Carl, very humorously, he will play, there's a John Jones on the Supergirl live action show right now, not played by Carl, but Carl plays his father in a special guest appearance. It's pretty funny. And then finally, of the main characters, Hawkgirl, voiced by Maria Canals Barrera, a Cuban-American actress who would go on to become much more famous playing the mom on Wizards of Waverly Place.
Oh, not familiar with it, but I'm aware of it.
It gets a lot of, it got bigger ratings than Justice League did.
Yep.
But she's very invested in doing the character of Hawkgirl too. She came back for it. If you love the voice actors on this, I would definitely suggest look up on YouTube. They did a video version of the Rob Paulson podcast where he has a reunion of all of them, and they're just having just a fun time joking about their Justice League days. It's really great. And you also get to see Rob tasks them with acting out a scene from The Lord of the Rings together.
Okay.
And he casts them, and they're all great actors, but Kevin Conroy, they're all like, oh, I've never read this before. Give me a sec, okay? Kevin Conroy, instantly, he's got it. He's just like, you're the perfect actor.
He's hamming it up.
And so the theme song, there's multiple composers on it, but the theme song is written by Lolita Ritmanis, a longtime collaborator with Shirley Walker, who wrote on a lot of other DCAU stuff.
Okay.
So that's why it still has that same flavor. Overseas animation was handled by TMS's Korean sub studio Coco. They did every episode, except Don Yang helped like here or there on a couple episodes, but mostly this is a Coco production.
There's some good animation that's sort of stymied by the early digital age, where
Yeah.
everything's a little too saturated, things are a little too
clean.
Yeah,
I
a little
think,
too
yeah.
clean.
Well, though, you can definitely see Coco had a bigger budget than, I think the show Static Shock is really good. It's a really, really, really good show. The animation, though, is definitely lower budget than Justice League, and you can tell that watching the two of them together.
It's interesting to go back to this era because you can see the things they're trying that they would just stop doing because they don't work. Like there's this weird motion blur effect they try to do,
Oh,
like when
yeah.
the Joker's spinning around in his chair, when characters are moving fast, especially the Flash. It's like, this doesn't look that good.
Yeah, I mean, The Flash is one of the toughest things. It's why they never wanted to do The Flash in animation, because
Yeah.
animating somebody moving fast is way more expensive than animating Batman swinging on a bat pole or whatever.
You don't get very fast or very slow. We can do regular movements
Yeah.
for our money.
They got better at it as the years went on, but in this episode, we're doing not so good at it. So Justice League premieres November 17th, 2001. Cartoon Network's biggest ratings ever at
Oh,
the
wow.
time. 4.1 million viewers on the premiere. That record will not be broken until a 2009 live action original movie of Scooby-Doo.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
I forgot they did that. That was such a weird period where they were doing like, let's not do cartoons anymore.
Yeah, we talked a little about that on the Craig of the Creek one, because
Yeah.
that's what those guys were hired for. They're like, oh, I guess we're working on that live action show.
One of them was like out of Mikey's head or whatever, or something like that, or like out of
Yeah.
Johnny's head. I don't know. It was dumb.
It's best forgotten.
Yeah.
But this was a huge thing for Cartoon Network. This was, their weekend programming block for Toonami, giant all the time, and this was a big, big record setter for him. Always a strong performer on the channel, despite very weird airing schedules and holding back a lot of episodes for unexpected reasons. The second season, the creators got a bit more experimental, more confident, less grounded. Bruce Timm also mentions that they got mocked. He was annoyed seeing people on the internet bring up that in season 1, Superman gets knocked unconscious a lot because they just write him out of a fight of like, oh, Superman got hit with a laser, guess he can't help.
It's the old force field coming back.
And so they knew like, oh, the people are right. Superman's too much of a wuss. So Superman's a lot stronger in season 2. And also, unlike in season 1, the two-parters would air the same night, so it was more like an original weekly movie of Justice League. They thought that the series would end with their final episodes of season 2, which is why they paid off a giant twist and blew up the entire concept in the three-parter called Star-Crossed. But then they got renewed, but for a new series that we'll talk about some other time. Okay. But Justice League got canceled, or Justice League as we knew it ended with a May 2004 premiere ahead of a July 2004 premiere of the sequel series Unlimited. And but so that is how the Justice League series came to be. It's really interesting how they had to deal with all these executives who didn't want it and comic book people who had their insistences, and you don't see any of that sweat on the screen. You just see a awesome team-up superhero show.
And where can you watch this now? So I bought it on Amazon, individual episodes, but DC still has that unlimited thing?
So there's DC Universe.
Which, there we go.
Yeah, I paid $0 for it. I did a test thing this week. But I do believe that in May 27th is when HBO Max starts. And I don't think all the new stuff that's on DC Universe will be there, but I do think the old stuff that's on there will be there. So you can give it a watch there too. The Blu-rays of it are remastered and they look pretty good, and there's some good extras and commentaries on there too. So I wouldn't say no to the Blu-rays if you haven't got them yet. But yeah, you can also just buy the individual episodes pretty much anywhere. And they've always been teasing more of it. And they do all these like teases of, there's one called Justice League Doom, which that's a really good direct-to-video movie. And they bring back some of the voices, but it's not animated in the same style. Or they did another one that's like sort of animated in that style, but it's just, there's been no official continuation of the DCAU, but there have been theoretical, like Injustice, it uses most of the cast from this show as well. So there's been a lot of continuations of Justice League, but no true new Justice League after this. But okay, speaking of continuing, why don't we take a break? And when we come back, we'll continue with our discussion of Part 2 of Injustice for All.
Return with more Justice League on Cartoon Network. Justice League, premiering November 17th at 7, only on Cartoon Network.
Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Wait, he's very fast. Yeah.
The world's greatest team of heroes has finally come home.
Home sweet home.
Toonami presents Justice League, premiering Monday, June 2nd at 5.
Not so fast.
All them heroes is in the house.
Just watch.
In brightest day and blackest night, I'm Henry Gilbert, one of your podcast hosts here.
Hey everybody, it's your other host Bob Mackey, and my secret weakness is weapons-grade bolognium.
And welcome to The Break. Thanks so much for listening this week, and a big thank you to our patron who suggested we do this podcast. Thank you, Jibbly, for picking Justice League. And we thank all of our patrons who, through subscribing, let us do all these cool podcasts as our full-time jobs. And if you subscribe, you get way more than just our thanks.
That's right. If you go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons and sign up at the $5 level, you get access to all of our podcasts 1 week at a time and ad-free. And you also get access to everything behind the $5 paywall, nearly 3 years worth of bonus podcasts. Once you sign up, you get access to all of them immediately. Almost too many podcasts to listen to, but those podcasts include all of our limited miniseries, including our most recent one, which is Talking Mission Hill. It's currently unraveling, and we're going through the entire run of Mission Hill, the entire only season with the Talking Simpsons and What a Cartoon treatment. The other miniseries include Talking of the Hill, Talking Critic, and 2 seasons of Talking Futurama. And on top of that, there are interviews, end-of-season wrap-ups, and deleted scene specials for Talking Simpsons, and so much more. Like I said, almost 100 or possibly more than 100 bonus podcasts at this point at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. And Henry can tell everybody out there what is happening at the $10 level. That includes one mega-long podcast once a month that is just for patrons at that level or higher.
That's right. It's the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. If you enjoy the What a Cartoon podcast, but wish we talked about feature films more, well, guess what? We do that once a month in full, up to 4 hours or longer on patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. You get to hear a preview of each month on this feed, but if you want to hear the full thing, like last month's Lupin the Third film, The Castle of Cagliostro, or this month's What a Cartoon Movie podcast for Toy Story 2, you gotta be a $10 a month subscriber at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. You'll also get our full back catalog, over 60 hours of movie podcasts, which include, if you're a Bat fan after watching this, you gotta hear us talk about Batman Mask of the Phantasm, such a great Batman film. And if you're in the mood for more superhero stuff, I would definitely suggest our Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse podcast. We had a lot of fun with that too, and over a dozen other ones as well. So please sign up at the $10 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And if you've never been on Patreon before, it is so easy to sign up. And once you do, you're given a code, and you have access to that code at all times. You just drop that code into whatever you use to listen to podcasts. And there is also a really great Patreon app out there that also lets you listen to our podcast that way. But either way you choose, it is so easy to fit our bonus podcasts into your podcasting lifestyle alongside your free podcasts.
So thanks for your support. And now back to the rest of this podcast, and hopefully you don't contract kryptonite poisoning.
Destroys Superman and the Justice League.
Help us.
Don't worry about me. Stop them.
I always do.
Here's the plan.
What plan? We kick their butts, right? Let's get this over with.
I'm going to enjoy this.
Too much curiosity can be dangerous.
Maybe I like danger.
Gotta stop it before it's too late. Stay down.
Give me strength.
Let's move.
Aren't you gonna thank me?
Down, boy. They run like cowards. What are you waiting for?
Let me get us out of here. It's either that or prison again.
Justice League, Saturday at 10.
Take out those factories.
Only on Cartoon Network. We now return to Justice League on Cartoon Network.
Okay, we are back, and this is Injustice for All from the first season. And yeah, I picked this one because you get a bunch of cool villains, you get all the heroes in it too, and also I wanted this one because it answers the age-old question about the Justice League. Why does the Justice League have a dude in it who has no superpowers?
Good question.
It's been asked by many a comic fan for decades and decades, and every Justice League writer kind of has to approach it in their stories.
Because Batman's very popular. How dare you?
Yes. Outside of the world, we know that's why Batman's there.
I have to say that this is a part 2, and I watched part 1 and I enjoyed it. But after I watched part 2, I was like, oh, part 1 didn't need to exist. They could have started the story where part 2 begins and edit things around, just edit a few things.
Yeah.
This could be a standalone thing. So I feel like in some ways they're a bit hamstrung by the two-parter, and that not all of these stories need to be two-parters.
I'm starting to, I watched a couple other two-parters, and I got that feeling too. I don't want to say there's padding in it, but to an extent, it feels more like they put the story of like 1.5 scripts into a two-parter.
Yeah.
I just expanded the fight scenes.
I think it's more exciting when a story starts like in the middle sometimes. So like if this just started with Batman tied up and all the villains there, I would have no questions, But the first part's really just a wind up to how Batman gets there, which once you know he's there, that's all you need to know. So if you want to watch this for the podcast, you should just buy part 2.
Yeah. The part 1's really good. I mean, I just had a couple notes about part 1 of just that they close the old arc on Lex Luthor. Like, this is about turning Lex Luthor, the same character voiced by Clancy Brown, is about taking him from the fancy businessman who is secretly evil into being just an openly infamous supervillain. Like, because that's what the Justice League TV series needs of him. He can't be the continuing villain of a Superman show. He has to be a one-off villain, and you have to be fully a cartoonish supervillain.
Put him in prison next to a monkey.
And also they took a plot line that I really liked from the early 90s, late 80s Superman comics, which it was trying to always ground Superman more in the post-crisis stuff. And so, Lex Luthor always had like kryptonite by his side in old comics and be like, yeah, kryptonite. I never leave home without it because I got to beat Superman with this stuff. Then as we learn more about, radioactive elements and everything.
I keep this plutonium in my belt at all times.
So that's why it's revealed in the late 80s in the comics that Lex Luthor gave himself cancer because he's always wearing a kryptonite ring. And he dies of cancer but puts his brain in a clone body.
That's a real boner.
And eventually that Lex Luthor is brought back to status quo by selling his soul to a Satan equivalent.
So this all checks out.
But how they deal with it in this universe is almost as silly. It involves Brainiac rewriting the cancer in his blood. But that's not dealt with in this one. But I just love that, like, Superman, his classic problems with Superman, they have to all change in this episode when Superman's like, no, our dance is over. You have cancer. Like, you're going to die. And he's like, what? You did this.
That's my biggest enemy now.
And I also like that they take the idea. So this is the Legion of Doom. This is their version of the Legion of Doom. So you've got Star Sapphire. She is a Green Lantern from space.
Okay.
Who has purple things. And also in a very sexist thing, it's about a woman's brain being taken over and turned evil by power. Like that.
By knowledge.
Star Sapphire is actually Carol Ferris, Hal Jordan's girlfriend, turned evil by power. So that's Star Sapphire. You've also got Cheetah and Solomon Grundy, and they were both members of the Legion of Doom and Super Friends under Lex Luthor. Though actually in the Legion of Doom show, they were not allowed Joker because Joker was on another Batman cartoon. So that's why none of the cool Batman villains are members of the Legion of Doom.
It's like the Joker had a commitment. He was too busy working.
Oh, I'm in first position on this show. I just can't get out of it, Lex. But that's what I love about the end of part 1 is they set up that, like, the reason the Justice League can easily defeat the Legion of Doom is they are just a bunch of assholes getting paid by one guy and they don't really care. Like, they're not into it. And so when the Joker arrives, he's like, come on, I know how to do this, Lex. And you get just a little bit of their history from the World's Finest cartoon because Lex teamed up with Joker one time and he's like, I hate you. No way. Not doing it.
Cheetah gave me some Cheetara vibes.
Yeah.
Just a naked woman walking around.
Yeah, it's a naked furry lady. So Cheetah classically she is a woman in pajamas. But starting in the 80s, she was redone as a just nude woman in fur. And so that's how Cheetah has been ever since. And, I mean, we all know the DC animated universe has a thing for furries.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And, Solomon Grundy, voiced by Mark Hamill as well. He's doing double duty in this show.
With like a filter or something on
yes,
it.
yeah. And
I couldn't tell it was him until I saw the credits.
I always forget, too, that he's that guy. And, and Joker, I like that he pretty much is his Batman Beyond flashback design. They just kind of took that one out of storage. He's not the clean lines of the Batman, the New Adventures of Batman.
Like the black eyes with the white dots in them.
Yeah, that's gone.
I love that, but I understand why it's not here.
He'd look like a freak freakish compared to the other characters in the show.
I guess they had more money because these characters are much more complex than the redesigned Batman ones.
Yeah, they definitely, this had real money behind it, a bigger budget than Batman Beyond for sure. And also the Ultra Humanite, he's actually the first supervillain Superman ever faced.
Really?
But he was a test case for Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor shows up 1 year later in the comics and they're like, oh, this guy's cooler than the Humanite. Let's stick with Lex Luthor. And so they didn't bring back Ultra Humanite. Ultra Humanite was a man in his first appearances. And then in the early 80s, he transfers his brain to an albino gorilla, and that's when he sticks around.
I recall Superman's early history being him fighting a lot of evil imps.
Yeah, evil imps or evil scientists, or in his first year or so, he fights a lot of slumlords too, which he was more of a working man superhero when Superman first appeared. The writer on both parts is Stan Berkowitz, who is one of the most prolific writers on the Team WB, but I already talked a shitload about him on the Spider-Man animated series episode we did. He was the writer of that Mysterio cartoon. And the episode is directed by Butch Luckick, who, along with Dan Reba, directed all the episodes of Justice League. It was it was one of those two trading off and director positions. His earliest credits were on Smurfs and Camp Candy.
Ooh, I'm going to pan both of those.
He was definitely saved by working on Timm's more prestigious teams. He worked in the first season of Batman and also boarded on Mask of the Phantasm.
Cool.
He'd graduate to director in the Warner Brothers era, or the Kids WB era, and he'd worked on stuff up until 2015. His most recent credit was something I had not heard of before, Batman Unlimited, the movie, which Batman Unlimited never had its own cartoon series. It was just a toy line, and they're like, what if we made a direct-to-video movie of this toy line?
Oh, so that was never a series?
Yeah, never a series, but did get a movie.
Interesting,
Voice guests also include Star Sapphires, played by Olivia d'Abo, the Karen Arnold from Wonder Years. So pretty cool casting there. The opening of the show with its CGI characters, there's some weird shadows and movements in there, but it looks all right.
It looks good until you can see faces. Like the second you see Wonder Woman's face, you're like, no, keep it in shadows.
Yeah, they were working on this for so long to see if they could get DC, the Bruce Timm style, to work in 3 dimensions. They had better results with the 2010, 2011 Green Lantern series they did, but that only ran 1 season, and then they did a 3D Batman show as well that got canceled after 3 episodes. It was incredibly wasteful on Cartoon Network's part.
Things could not look better than Jimmy Neutron or reboots.
In 2001, yeah, no way. We did Reboot. Reboot looks 10 times better than this because this has to hide so much in shadow, and also has a rockin' soundtrack going over it. Once the opening's over, we get a great start to part 2 as Batman is awoken by staring at the Joker.
Wakey, Batman.
Joker, I should have known you'd be in on this.
Really? I must be falling into a rut. You're not going to leave him like this, are you?
Why?
Hello? He's still alive.
And he's going to stay that way until I say we don't need him anymore.
Lex, listen to someone who knows. Don't wait. Do it now.
You don't like my decisions? Leave.
And they say I'm crazy.
What? Those restraints are pure titanium. He'll never get loose. And that stasis field will prevent the Martian from locating him. Now, Batman, you must have some kind of passkey or access code I can use against your friends. Where is it?
Guess.
Grundy?
So basically, they're trying to get the garage door opener for the Justice League headquarters.
It even looks like one when
It
you
is,
finally
yeah.
see
I was like,
it.
what? Okay, that's funny.
So again, the whole point of this episode, in part one, there's a line to really hit it on the top of the head of John Jones says to Batman, I know you are worried that you're not as strong as the rest of us, but you're a valued member of the team. You're supposed to feel like Batman is feeling inadequate compared to all these super beings he's around. And then this episode is entirely about how Batman could defeat this entire team of villains by himself and how nobody else on the team can do what he does. Like, this is the Batman is awesome episode of the show. And I wonder, like, why didn't they unmask him while he was asleep? I got to think he has anti-unmasking technology.
Some sort of super adhesive. It's in the utility belt.
And I like the Joker is also very insistent, like, we should murder him. We have him right here.
There are times when they do question Lex Luthor or supervillain bullshit. Like, come on, what are you doing, buddy?
Yeah,
It's like, I know what I'm doing.
I see this episode as about Lex Luthor learning the difference between being an evil businessman and being an outright supervillain, and it's taking him time to learn that. And I like that he has traded his three-piece suit, his awesome looking black and white suit, for basically what Lex Luthor wears in the Legion of Doom and Superfriends: purple shirt and green pants. It's much more of a classic look for him. Though Joker, many times he's not killed Batman when he has the chance. But if you treat this as a continuing continuity, the last time Joker appeared in DC Animated Universe was in the Mad Love episode.
Okay.
And in that, he does let Batman go when he could kill him. And I think he probably learned his lesson there. And that's why he's like, let's just shoot him in the face right now.
I guess he's like, well, this isn't my plan. I would have more theatrics, but while you've got him, let's murder him.
Yeah. But the Joker is just like, you know what? I'm just happy to be here. Happy to be part of the team, Lex. Yes, it's funny, too, that Lex follows the typical deal that supervillains have to do, which is you take that utility belt off Batman instantly, but he doesn't know that it's incredibly secured and you can't just open up a pouch on it. It's also funny that Joker, when you look back on it, everybody else is using Lex or is a traitor. Joker is the only one who's like telling him good advice the entire time.
He's the only Lex loyalist.
But Lex can't trust him because he's the Joker. Like,
Joker knows it's hard to find good help.
And so in this episode, I think Batman honestly is almost written too overpowered. Like he tricks everybody, he outsmarts everyone to the point of making Lex almost too bumbling.
He has some sort of mega mind.
Yeah.
Well, Lex does have like Krypton cancer, so maybe it's affecting his brain.
You know what? That's a good cover for it. Yeah. Yes, as Batman is left alone with the first of his two guards, every time somebody guards him, he can trick them in any way. And that includes, Grundy's pretty easy to trick in this clip.
What's Luthor paying you for this?
Money. Lots of it.
As much as he's getting?
I don't know.
Look at all you've had to put up with. You should be getting more.
More than me? Preposterous.
Is it?
Batman's helping them organize.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's like, does your manager work hard? That's where you start organizing people. You ask them, does your manager work harder than you?
Hey, wait a minute. You're right. Money. That's good.
Although the Wayne Corporation cracks down on unions. They bring in the Pinkertons and beat the shit out of them.
I think Humanite does work harder than Grundy, though. Grundy's just a muscle. Like Humanite, he's almost doing as much science as Lex. He even helps Lex break out of jail. I think Humanite definitely needs to be paid more. As that scene ends, we then cut to Copperhead being interrogated. Copperhead, he does much more in part one, but he is a C-tier guy at best.
What a weird loser he is. He reminds me of the Cobra Queen from Freakazoid. It's like they should be hanging out together.
I have a feeling Tim just reused. He's like, hey, remember what we did with Cobra Queen? Let's just do that with this guy. Though Copperhead had appeared in DC Comics beforehand. He's not a creation for this.
And he did bite Batman previously.
Yeah. Well,
previously on Justice League.
His mask bit him. That's the weirdest part.
That is true.
He doesn't bite him. It's like
maybe that's an imitatable act, so the mask has to bite him.
I like
what if you bit your little brother watching Justice League? Not good.
But this scene as well is about how much Superman can't do what Batman does.
I keep telling you I don't know anything. I'm just an innocent victim of circumstances.
Yeah, we know.
Copperhead, when are you going to get some sense and tell us where Luthor is?
Ooh, this must be the part where I get so scared I spill my guts.
I'm warning you.
What are you gonna do, Boy Scout? Short my sheets? Give me a wedgie?
Guards! Take him back to the holding cell.
Hasta la vista.
That went well.
How does Batman do it?
That was the 2000s equivalent of, well, that happened.
Yes, yeah. I love that went well.
Yeah.
The Flash is the guy who would say that.
Very
on the
smarmy
team.
character, but yeah, Superman playing bad cop there, and Copperhead rightfully calling his bluff. Like, you're not going to punch someone in interrogation, Superman.
Yeah, oh yeah, Superman famous for beating up into suspects. Yeah, no, that's, but this is the show calling Superman a dork. They're like, yeah, Superman, pff, you can't do anything to me. I'm already under arrest. That's as far as you go. But also that, again, if this episode is about answering why Batman is important to the team, here it is again. If Batman was there, he could have interrogated him instantly and gotten all the information.
Batman is super into torture.
Yeah.
He would just held him out a window, and then we would have found out everything. Because torture always works.
It always works. It always pays off. Any information you get screamed by somebody who's afraid they're going to die, definitely true.
Mm-hmm.
They're not saying what they want to hear. This is why we all loved Batman he worked perfectly in the post 9/11 era.
We didn't think twice about it.
Which I guess this is also it wasn't written in it, but this did come out after 9/11. But yeah, I also like Batman. Then it cuts to him. He's now being guarded by Cheetah. And this is the bit where it really feels like Bruce Timm writing.
He wants to kiss that cat lady.
Yeah, I know.
Right on her furry lips.
It very much is Bruce Timm writing fan fiction at this point.
And then what happened?
My research opened whole new worlds. There was so much to do.
But so little funding.
You know about that.
You didn't have enough for research subjects, so you used yourself.
And now I'm a freak.
That's not what I see. I see someone who was willing to give up everything for a cause she believed in.
How do you know so much about me?
Let's just say cats aren't the only ones who are curious.
Too much curiosity can be dangerous.
Maybe I like danger.
Do you?
Try me.
Whoa. Hey now. There's a child watching this.
I know. And then she kisses it. Yeah, that's Kevin Conroy really great with sexy Batman. Try me.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, his arms and legs are restrained, but she could get to that dick if she wanted
Exactly.
to.
I mean, we don't know what happens after this. Who knows what's on that surveillance video that we see later?
I bet Bruce Timm has a drawing of that.
Yeah, it's
somewhere.
like, and here's the unplanned animatic that I made myself.
It wouldn't be a DC Animated Universe podcast if we didn't talk about Bruce Timm being horny.
Too horny.
But I mean, this fits in that Batman has a thing for cat ladies. We know that. And also, I mean, Cheetah is a sexy naked cat lady.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, this is again showing that Batman can beat all of them with his wits, including at this point, he is easily seducing Cheetah, whose job it is to just guard him. And he just seduces her like that, which that also feels like couldn't do that on Kids WB. Batman does not get to seduce ladies.
It's because all these people are working for money. They have no loyalty to Lex Luthor. They're like, I'm just here for the paycheck. If I could fuck Batman, sure.
I think in later ones, they are at least able to show that the villains come together because they all hate superheroes. And they're like, okay, we'll work together to beat superheroes. But in this case, Cheetah, who is a Wonder Woman villain, she doesn't really give a shit about Wonder Woman. She's just like, I fight Wonder Woman. Anyway, where's that payday? And I like, in general, throughout the whole episode, how Cheetah, she's always animated lounging on something or perched on something. Always very cat-like positions for her. It's really cool. Cheetah is, I guess she's Wonder Woman's Joker, I suppose. Wonder Woman doesn't have a great rogues gallery.
A lot of these superheroes really don't.
Yeah. We've been just spoiled by Batman having such a great gallery.
It's trite, but he's got the best ones.
So Lex is still trying to unlock that utility belt. Joker is, again, correctly repeatedly telling him Batman's been alone for too long, but Luthor just won't let him do it. But yes, this is when they open up the utility belt. They're going through all Batman stuff. We get a nice bat blank and bat blank. They didn't say shark repellent though. No shark repellent gag. But Luthor finally opens it up and he gets his garage door opener.
Yeah.
And I also like how excited they draw Joker to play with all the batarangs and stuff. That's really fun.
All the wonderful toys.
They then cut to the Watchtower satellite. The home base in the show is kind of a combo of classic Justice League storylines. In the 90s Justice League, their home base is a place called the Watchtower, which is on the face of the moon. In the Detroit years of Justice League, I believe it was in the 70s, they have a satellite. So this is pretty much just the moon-style Watchtower, but as a satellite.
Batman get up there?
He's got a space plane.
Okay,
He flies up there.
space plane.
Yeah. In the 90s comics, they just have teleporters. They just go like, look, they have teleporters. Batman knows how to make his own teleporter. You would think, though, the Watchtower satellite could notice when Star Sapphire in a big pink bubble is flying up to them. But in general, John Jones looks like a big punk here, I gotta say. Like, he just easily taken out. And again, John Jones is nearly as strong as Superman, can also turn intangible and turn his body into any shape, and can read your mind.
But a dark room is what takes him out.
It's like, oh, someone turned out the lights. Ow. Yeah,
I've been knocked out by a zombie.
It's just he gets the Superman role, I guess, in this episode of the easily taken out guy. And then there's also kind of a very needless scene of cutting to the rest of the team at the prison, and then they go like, oh, then let's go. Batman's not here.
Yeah, that was confusing me. Like, I was like, did we need this? I didn't know if they felt like story-wise we needed to like find out how people went to certain places or...
Yeah, I don't... It just felt like we needed to be reminded that the whole team is together.
I'd even write that down in my notes because I was like, why is this here? Like,
I only wrote it down because I was like, this is such a superfluous scene. I don't know why this is here other than just establishing things. But it establishes it with no interesting dialogue. But
is this when the Joker wheels in like the 90s classroom TV?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So Batman makes out with Cheetah. Then Humanite takes over. He's ordered to watch over him. And I believe Joker comes in when Humanite has been alone with Batman. In between scenes, that has to be when Batman sells him on his traitor plan. But you see Cheetah make out with Batman. You think she's the traitor. Instead, she's just like, yeah, I made out with Batman, but that doesn't mean I'm a traitor.
Who hasn't in this room?
He's a hot guy. We all want to make out with him. But
yeah, I guess before that, Joker's like, get Humanite to replace her.
Yeah. But Humanite, he makes out with Batman's pocketbook. We find out.
And his mouth.
But yes, the Joker comes in to taunt Batman some more.
Still no word from Jean?
Not since he sounded the alarm.
Something's wrong up there. I can feel it.
Then let's go.
So lame.
Showtime, everybody! Live and in color, the end of the Justice League.
Don't make me laugh.
It's no joke. There's a surprise hidden in your little clubhouse. And once your chums get there, kablooey! Popcorn? Oh well, more for me.
Joker, you nauseate me.
Oh, he's going to miss the show. And the sequel.
What sequel?
After the bomb gets your friends, I get you.
That's the razor blade Joker.
Yes.
Not included with his action figure.
It's a more intense, this is definitely the return of the Joker who's just like, yeah, I am going to cut you up with a knife because I will kill you. Not as much of a funny Joker, this one. Also, that was a good maniacal laugh, but we've heard better from Mr. J.
Yeah. It's a very subdued Joker. I think he's like a different character here, like a different type of Joker.
He should be, honestly, his popcorn eating is funny, but they could have just done a little more with it and have been real meme worthy, you know?
Yeah, more antics, I think.
Oh, man, I could be gifting it up in so many replies of just like Joker eating the popcorn could totally replace the Thriller eating popcorn.
That gif is canceled. I'm sorry, we can't use it anymore.
So I think they don't say this, the timeline of it, but I believe when Humanite says, Joker, you nauseate me, he leaves the room. I think that's when he calls the League.
Yeah, I think so.
That's when he tips him off. But yeah.
And big mistake to leave the bomb in a giant conspicuous briefcase.
Little dumb.
Like
little
a
dumb on
glowing
that part.
yellow briefcase, like Dayglow colors.
Also, maybe, I don't know, leave Grundy there just to blow it up himself.
Or put the bomb in something. Don't just like leave it laying behind like a like an ottoman or whatever.
Again, this is Lex has brain cancer, I guess now.
You get what you pay for. These people are not getting paid well enough.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So when the good guys arrive, they see that John is unconscious, which also, like, Lex, pay him enough to kill John Jones. Don't leave him unconscious.
Yeah, twist his head off while he's down.
Yeah, but Superman, then again, he's a bad leader in this. Superman doesn't delegate. He tells them, like, you guys look for Batman. I'm going to carry John to the infirmary. And it's like, how about the fast guy run him there and you, Superman, stay in place?
He could be in there right now.
You're Superman. You're the guy. But yes, they are watching and waiting for the bomb to go off at the Injustice headquarters while the Justice League gets a little tip.
Any minute now. Any minute.
And then we get paid, right?
Please, can't you let me savor this one moment?
Sorry.
We've looked everywhere. Batman's gone.
And so is the shuttle.
That must be him. Hello? I beg your pardon? Where? Hello? Hello?
What did he say?
It wasn't Batman. It was someone saying there's a bomb up here.
Must be some kind of joke. No, this is serious. That's a secure line.
Then what are we waiting for? Spread out and find it.
Nope. Zilch. Nada.
Not here.
Upper levels are clear.
Nothing on this deck.
Keep looking.
I like that the Flash thinks you can just call the Justice League from a payphone.
Oh, yeah.
What's their area code? What's the area code for outer space?
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, how stupid Flash is there. Superman has to remind him, like, it's secure line.
Yeah.
There's almost too much comedy from Lex, but I do like Clancy Brown's delivery of, like, can't you let me savor this one moment? I think one of the best, like, plotting moments here is you see Cheetah look sad, and then it cuts to the phone call. But what it actually is, like, she feels guilty, but she also is going to let them explode. She doesn't feel that guilty. I also think Wonder Woman comes off as, like, overly earnest there. She's like, oh, this must be Batman. Hello? What? No, it's not Batman. What's going on? And also, Superman, this is just a Sean Baby joke, but Superman is forgetting his powers. You have X-ray vision. You'll find it instantly.
Oh, yeah. He looked at one wall with X-ray vision. Like, nope, not here. Well, you guys take care of the rest. Like, no, get outside. Look at the whole ship. Come on, man.
Yeah, and do it at super speed because you can move at super speed, Superman.
I guess the trick to watching any of these programs is, like, you can't be fully aware of all their powers while you're watching. You have to be like, I guess you could do this, right?
That's harder to animate. It's like, that actually comes to the Flash stuff here because this is Flash with the weird motion blurring, and he's kind of moving kind of fast, but I should note that normally in the comics, the Flash's bare minimum speed is speed of light. Like, he can, at the very least, speed of sound. So a Flash that moves 300 miles an hour seems kind of lame.
They honestly should have looked at Dragon Ball Z when, like, in the show when things are moving so fast you can't see them, just kind of blipping around the screen, or you see, like, streaks. You know? I think that would have been a good technique for this because anime has been doing it for a while.
By Justice League Unlimited, they do take some of those plans from it in some of those styles. There's actually, in season 2's finale of Justice League Unlimited, it's the episode where Flash finally moves as fast as he does in the comics, and it's really, really cool. But there's a reason they can only do that once per season in the show. It's too expensive. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned Dragon Ball because I think they felt in competition with Dragon Ball all the time, and it's why they kept trying to up the violence in the show because they're like, these kids are watching Dragon Ball, and then we can't look lame compared to Dragon Ball.
Yeah, this is like peak getting new episodes of Dragon Ball times for Toonami.
And this is also peak on forums saying who'd win in a fight, Superman or Goku.
Yeah.
Which, it's Goku because he just gets more powerful each time while Superman kind of base levels out, I'd say.
It doesn't matter if Goku dies either, so you can't win.
There's also that, yeah. And then you got Shenlong in there. It's just, and then Senzu beans. Like, Superman ain't got any Senzu beans. Yeah, they're also using their earpieces to communicate because if John Jones is unconscious, normally he connects them all through telepathy.
He's like a wireless router.
Pretty much, yeah. That's them taking it from there's no like one-to-one this comic to this episode of this series, I don't think. But this is more the Grant Morrison idea that Martian Manhunter is kind of like their Wi-Fi network, or no, LAN cables, I should say. He's their LAN cables.
He's their intercom.
They do some quick searching of it. They find it. The Flash throws it into outer space at just the last second. And for a moment, Lex thinks he's won. And the disappointment on his face when he sees that it just blew up outside and not indoors was very funny. I like that. And Luthor he's at the end of his rope. Everybody wants to quit. And so he's got to up their pay one more time.
No! It's not fair. They should be cosmic dust.
Luthor, calm down. Your condition.
What do you care? You're just a bunch of incompetent money-grubbing crooks.
That's it. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm out of here.
Me too.
Wait! I'll double your pay.
What's the point? It's over.
No! We can still win if we lure them here. I have a plan, but we've got to stick together.
Grundy, not that dumb.
All right then, triple!
They're taking him for all he's worth. Like this is the last of his money is spent in this episode.
Well, it's being invested well if you're going to kill the entire Justice League.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing a little bit of Mr. Krabs.
A
SpongeBob.
A pained Luthor goes, "I'll triple it." And you know what? He wouldn't triple anybody's salary.
He's the opposite of Lex Luthor.
Yeah, Lex is pretty nice compared to Mr. Krabs in this sequence here. And as Lex is trying to formulate a new plan, the Joker has his own plan. Stabbing time.
Oh, they ruined the punchline. But I can still have my fun. Boom! Not funny, Bats. Oh.
Luthor not want you alone with him.
Oh, come on, Grundy, old pal. What's a couple of nicks between friends?
Go away.
Party pooper.
Thanks. If you hadn't come along when you did. Could I have some water?
Okay.
This is also a lot of just acting from Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, it's good.
He's just like, I'm really thirsty now as Batman. Ugh.
He's got sexy Batman, thirsty Batman.
They're thirsty in the literal sense.
It's true.
Yes, yeah. And they're showing off how cool Batman is, that he does all of this while completely tied up and it's just his wits is setting him up. I like Joker. Some of the best animation in this is just Joker reactions. Like, I love how listlessly he knocks over that TV set, like, they ruined the punchline.
There's really good animation of him in a later scene where it's just him and a gun together. I'm like, somebody worked really hard on this one little scene of him.
Some real Sakuga there. Yeah, the Grundy stops Joker. That's Hamill talking to himself. And then Grundy, in a very stupid move, gives Batman the water he asks for. And Batman shuts down the stasis field so he can think really hard at John Jones. Yes. Which does reveal the location. And so the Justice League is getting into action.
That's the Achilles heel of the Batman holding device. That's the non-waterproof roof.
Yeah, I would think if you spit water on like any light in my apartment, it wouldn't short out anything.
No, but hey.
But that's how good Batman is, I guess. Even his water spitting is like the greatest water spitting a man has ever done.
Maybe he activated like a secret compartment in his tooth that made the spit more caustic or something.
Ooh, yeah, or like electric spit. Like, obviously, I opened my electric spit tooth that I keep here just for such an occasion. Or also, Batman would be so smart, he's like, well, I, of course, know the inventor of this stasis field, and I think if you spit water in this one specific place, it'd shut it down. All these things are completely believable for Batman because he's a ridiculous character who knows everything. But then cuts to Lex. Ultra Humanite has set up something to stabilize the condition that's killing him, which is a very like Frankenstein sequence here.
A cool vest.
Really cool vest. Well, so this is something that if you're a super comic fan, you have been waiting for this moment for a long time in the Superman cartoons, because there is an iconic, at least for 80s comic fans, Lex Luthor outfit. The green armor with purple accents and a chest plate thing, basically like an evil Iron Man costume. And he never wore it in the Superman animated series. He'd build it for other people to wear, but he never wore it himself. This now is finally him getting put in his supervillain costume.
Because he was like the suit guy, right?
Yeah. Now Lex is trading in that business suit for a super suit. He's finally become what we've always wanted to see. And Lex gets stabilized, and I think this lends credence to your belief that his brain is being damaged by it, because once his condition is stabilized, he goes like, hey, wait a minute, no, one of you's a traitor. I figured it out. But who is the traitor?
Will he be all right?
This containment unit should stabilize his condition. The next few minutes will tell.
Mr. Luthor! Mr. Luthor! Batman broke that static thingy.
He's probably already contacted the Martian. They'll be here soon.
What are we gonna do?
Don't panic. We'll be ready for them once we get rid of the traitor.
Traitor?
Think about it. The only way they could have found the bomb is if someone told them. One of us. Fortunately, this old place still has functioning surveillance cameras.
Yeah, getting that vest makes him 300% smarter.
Yes.
He immediately is like really way more proactive.
I think, if it's blood poisoning, that's definitely less blood to his brain, I think. So now he's getting, he's right as rain, and he's figured it out. And that's when he plays back the footage of Cheetah making out with Batman. The kiss lasts way too long. It's too creepy. Yeah, I also like that Humanite, he just lets her get caught. He's not going to give himself up for this. And she has a little fist fight with Grundy, almost escapes, and that's when the Joker stops her.
Hello, Kitty. And they say I'm not a team player.
Grundy, the pretty kitty's all yours.
And she is dragged away in a really kind of definitely not kids WB scene.
Yeah. Boy, yeah, the Joker is really, he's a good teammate, I would say.
Yeah, he saw she was about to escape, and he's like, no, you're going to die. I mean, you don't have to tell Joker twice to be violent towards a woman.
That's true.
He
knows what he's good at.
But yeah, so Grundy drags her away. Actually, it's funny. They draw, like, he kind of grabs her by the scruff of the neck that a regular cat would have. And so behind the scenes on this sequence here, Cheetah is supposed to be murdered. Like,
really? Wow.
Grundy, as Tim described it in a Toon Zone post, he said Grundy was going to go Lenny on her, meaning of mice and men.
Oh, yeah, because it's like, the pretty kitty is yours now.
Yes, yeah. So she is supposed to be dead. Bruce Timm tells stories that behind the scenes in later seasons, Tucker on the show was like, I want to bring back Cheetah. She'd be great in this scene. Let's bring back Cheetah. And Tim had to be like, no, we wrote that she was murdered. No one said out loud that Cheetah was killed, but their intention was she's supposed to be dead.
An off-screen death. Interesting.
But at the end of this episode, the animation team screwed up, and she's drawn in the back of the paddy wagon with the rest of them.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So
no wonder I didn't think she was dead.
So when somebody pointed that out to Tim, who he had forgotten there was that mistake in the episode, he's like, God damn it, she isn't dead. Okay, Tucker, she can come back.
I can't order a retake if it's already aired.
It's too late. But so Cheetah is supposed to never return and have been murdered off screen by Grundy.
Brutally.
So yes, the Justice League is here outside of the lair. Superman again, terrible team leader. He's like, all right, what are we going to do? John Jones is like, oh, I'm going to go inside right now. No, like, stop. Superman sucks. Captain America would never let this stuff happen. I'll tell you that much. He keeps those Avengers in line. John Jones heads down there. He interrupts Batman, and Batman can't warn him that, like, a Humanite is on his side, so Humanite has to knock him unconscious or else he'll get caught. That's the one moment where Batman loses his cool. He's like, John, no! Like,
he gets knocked out twice in this episode.
Yeah, boy, that sucks. I love Martian Manhunter. He really gets it bad in this episode. But yes, as John fails, it's time to try things Hawkgirl's way.
There. Batman's definitely inside, and so are the rest of them.
Then it's a hostage situation. They may try to use him as a shield.
Not if I can help it.
Wait! Jean, don't!
And so it begins.
Time's up. Now we do it my way.
And Hawkgirl's way is straight up warfare. Like she's from a warlike planet. So and she's got her nth metal mace, which has it's not just any old mace, Bob. It has magic powers. Her mace is actually really good on a magic guy like Grundy in this episode too. So then it's the big fight. The big finale fight is it's a bit of fun. I like you get to see different matchings of characters fighting each other. I especially like Superman gets to be with Grundy, so Superman can just like punch a dude for a while
in the
and
face,
not worry.
And that those the statues of the Wonder Twins gets destroyed. It's like the first thing that happens. Like this isn't your mommy's Super Friends.
Finally, they had to shit on the Super Friends. Would you believe in later episodes they have an even crueler joke at the Wonder Twins' expense?
I mean, the early 2000s were really about making fun of Super Friends. Wonder Twins.
Yeah, Wonder Twins specifically. Well, on Adult Swim around the same time was the Wonder Twin Adventures cartoons, where they redid them as like the Wonder Twins stop teens from being with a bear, and the bear just eats the kid.
Oh, that's right. I remember like pre-Adult Swim on Cartoon Network, they would have these little bumpers where it was like sort of like testimonials from the Wonder Twins, where it's just like I always had to turn into water.
That's right. Yeah,
but these are for kids, not for like the older audience.
And they still got Welker to do it, so it's Welker even in these things mocking it.
And they're obviously in Harvey Birdman.
Yes, yeah. We talked about it in Birdman. The Wonder Twins and Black Vulcan, they could appear because they were Hanna-Barbera originals, but DC blocked any DC original characters appearing on Harvey Birdman. That's also why they made a whole Aquaman Space Ghost style show, whole pilot for it. Never aired it in America because DC hated it.
Space Ghost is a joke too.
Yeah, but
no one's gonna take it seriously.
You can't be this mean to Aquaman. You made fun of Space Ghost. We won't you be this mean to Aquaman. But fortunately, you can watch it online because it like aired in like Europe and South America. So anyway, yeah, the big fight's a lot of fun. You know, it's the smash through the thing of the Wonder Twins. You get to see Joker roll out a bunch of exploding marbles that fuck up the Flash.
Where are they fighting? Like it's some merchandise store for like a movie line.
Yeah,
it was never really established that well. Sorry,
maybe it's supposed to be an abandoned Disney store kind of thing almost.
They remind me of like, is this like a Warner Brothers store?
Yeah,
or something like that. I remember when there were those.
There were those. Yeah, you could buy your Batman t-shirts for like $29.99.
Your Looney Tunes jean jackets.
Good old jean. Yeah, with the Taz or like Tweety Bird crossing her arms.
She's got an attitude.
There's also another thing I think was a reference. Wonder Woman gets distracted by being thrown a baby doll by the Joker. It's, I believe, drawn to look like the original incarnation of her sidekick, Wonder Girl, aka Donna Troy.
Okay.
Or at the very least, it's black hair with a red onesie. So I think it's supposed to be a stealth Wonder Girl reference.
And there's also a joke about throwing a duck and saying
that's
duck.
Cute.
Yeah.
Green Lantern gets more comedy than you'd expect for a ex-military guy like him.
A very stoic man.
And though I think the Joker pulled that whole marbles thing out of the Trickster's plan book. For the Flash's goofball villain is the Trickster, who also was played by Mark Hamill.
So many trick-playing villains. I prefer the Japester.
The Japester. There's, I mean, Superman has like 18 of them, including Toy Man, who they turned into a disturbing creep in the Superman series. That. Yeah, Superman finishes his fight with Grundy, and he says, "Where's Luthor?" Which he's really just asking to be shot in the back when he says that. And that's when you get the reveal. Oh, again, I tell you, I had the toy of this Lex Luthor, the one in his big green outfit. Like, I had that toy in the 80s. And so seeing that Lex Luthor on screen in the DC animated universe was a big deal to me.
You were denied that for so long.
Yeah, he was finally he was being the stupid toy I always wanted him to be. And yeah, he blasts Superman in the back. He says, like, I'm a businessman, turn every weakness into a strength. But Luthor, he trusted the wrong guys.
Enough. Where's Luthor?
Right here. And I'm going to enjoy every moment of this. Why so surprised, Superman? It's a basic rule of business. Turn every weakness into a strength. Of course, that's a lesson you may not live to appreciate.
Neither will you, Lex.
Bit too humanite.
Don't move!
I surrender.
Whoopsie, time to run. But there's still one unfinished piece of business.
That's the scene I was talking about. It's like super fluid.
Yeah, the way he moves from position and like pulls out his gun like that feels like one animator was like, I am going to do my great Joker scene here. But it looks so awesome. You know, it's funny. We just did that Superman one. In both of them, we have to listen to Superman groan a lot while he's blasted with green rays. And then, man, now you've ruined it. Hearing Lex scream, I'm like, that's just Mr. Krabs. But it's a great scream, and there's some wild drawings of Lex too, and he gets electrocuted there, and very overly dramatic with his too humanite.
When someone punches you in the back of the head, you got to say that.
You know what? Yeah, if ever I get betrayed, I'm gonna have to say et tu somebody.
I've read a very obvious play in high school.
We all were made to read this play. If he'd done a reference to The Tempest, I'd have been impressed there. The Joker has decided he could either escape or try to kill Batman. And it's funny that this scene is played both in a Looney Tunes over animated style, but also the Joker simply just has a gun, and his plan is to shoot Batman.
Shoot a tied up Batman in the head.
But yes, we get a classic Batman Joker confrontation.
No fair! How'd you get free?
I could have escaped any time, but I thought I'd stick around to keep an eye on you clowns.
You're despicable.
That's great.
More great animation on his just like wavy hair as he's like struggling to stand up before he says you're despicable.
He gets the Daffy/Sylvester tagline.
Yeah, the Daffy had it first. Sylvester stole it from him, didn't he? I think. This little fight scene here too, you get to hear a little of the Batman theme coming into. I like that.
Yeah, I did like that touch.
Yeah, and I'm thinking Batman saying I could have escaped whenever I wanted. I'm like, I don't know if that's true, but he wants the Joker to believe that.
Yeah. It's like I already won.
It makes him more of a scary guy anyway. And this Joker, in Return of the Joker, he's actually strong. This Joker is the kind who cannot fight Batman in a fair fight and will be beaten in 2 punches. So we get him taken out. Joker would appear only one more time in the DCAU in a kind of sequel episode of this where Joker is breaking the fourth wall as much as possible, and it's a very silly, fun episode. If you watch one more Justice League out there, listeners, and Bob too, I think you'd really enjoy that one.
I always enjoy this version of the Joker.
And so Batman reveals how he did it as Humanite left. He offered double what Luthor was paying to the Humanite, but not directly. He's going to make a donation in Humanite's name. And that's where it comes back to the scene in the first part is that Humanite is driving Luthor crazy because he's listening loudly to opera. And now Luthor is back where he began.
Humanite! You'll pay for this, you turncoat! Do you hear? You'll pay!
This program was made possible by a grant from the Ultra Humanite and viewers like you.
He's enjoying his PBS programming from prison.
I love to think like the PBS got like $30 million from the Ultra Humanite.
More Japanese opera.
In Humanite, he only appears in one other episode as like partially a villain, but he's never really a full villain again. And also, Luthor seemingly never gets his revenge on him either. Like he lets him go. Though don't worry, Lex Luthor does kill a different giant ape in the series, but that's a story for another time.
How I hate them.
But yeah, that was a fun. I like that two-parter, seeing the Injustice League together and how they kind of suck, like they're bad at their jobs.
Terrible.
And you get a cool fight scene, and you get to see all of the team in this episode. I didn't want to do one where like Batman's not there or Wonder Woman's not there. So if I had a note on this, is that like characters forgot they had their powers, not just Superman, but also like Wonder Woman ties up Joker with her lasso and then kind of just lets it go.
Yeah. He's breaks through quite easily from that.
Yeah. But it's a fun adventure episode, and I think a good entryway into the Justice League series, especially if you're a Batman fan. You're going to love watching this one because it builds up the myth of Batman so much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did enjoy it. It makes me a little sad that I was a bit snobbish about it. But I think it is, you could definitely see where it's coming from, and the people that are involved are from something I really love. So if this is more available to me in the future, I might watch more of it.
Yeah.
I gotta get that HBO Max.
I appreciate that Warner also like loosened the rules on it too, so they could just finally be more violent too. Finally, all that violence I love. But yeah, I guess again, thank you to Jibbly for picking out this episode. We really appreciate getting to do fun episodes as chosen by our premium patrons like Jibbly.
That's right. If you want to support our show just like Jibbly and get our episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. And if you sign up at the $5 level, you'll get just that, but also access to all of our limited miniseries and Patreon exclusive content, which we've been doing for almost 3 years now. I mentioned all of our miniseries, the most recent of which is Talking Mission Hill, which we're in the middle of right now, and you can get access to that, our exploration of all of the series Mission Hill, if you sign up for the $5 level on the Patreon. As well as I said before, everything we've done on that level for the past 3 years. That is hundreds of podcasts and probably like a billion hours. I can't do math right now, but it probably checks out. Yeah. Again, that is patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. And Henry can tell everybody out there what's happening at the $10 level. One extra long podcast every month that's based on a movie.
That's right. For premium patrons, $10 a month, you get all that $5 stuff and our monthly What a Cartoon Movie podcast. We have a new one each month. Our most recent one, Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro, a classic anime adventure and Hayao Miyazaki's first directed film. And before that, we had a ton of great ones. You know, if you love this conversation about comic book stuff, I think you definitely love our ones for Batman Mask of the Phantasm and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I think you'd enjoy them both. So please check out the entire back catalog. I think close to 70 hours of exclusive animated film discussions at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
So I have been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts. That is a classic gaming podcast. Find it at retronauts.com or wherever you find podcasts. Or go to patreon.com/Retronauts. That's the home of the Retronauts Patreon. If you go there and sign up, you can get 2 exclusive episodes every month that are not going to be available to the free feed. Again, that is patreon.com/Retronauts.
And hey, I'm Henry Gilbert. Follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. I am sure to tweet out fun stuff there, often about superheroes, I'm sure you'll see. Also, you should be following the official Twitter account of this podcast network at Talk Simpsons Pod. Anytime new podcasts go up on the free feed or on the Patreon, you will learn about it there. So follow at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter, please.
Thanks again for listening, folks. We'll see you next week for our extended preview of this month's episode of What a Cartoon Movie, and we will see you then.
She's been down there too long.
Forget it. There's no way I'm going to leave you alone with him.
But Lexi, where's your sense of fun? Besides, it won't cost you a cent.
Humanite, go relieve Cheetah.
Can't you sing Grundy?
Just do what I say.
It's your funeral.